Hi, we're Mike and Linda Okuley from Chesapeake, Virginia, and this is the story of our 1929 Model A Ford. It all began back in 1977 when we purchased an original Model A Ford two-door sedan with our dream of turning it into a drivable street ride that we could enjoy with the family on any kind of length of trip. Air conditioning, power windows, automatic, and a late model V8 Chevrolet under the hood. All built on a great foundation. And that foundation became the TCI chassis that's underneath our car today, 41 years later. Well, even back in 1979, we knew enough from reading magazines to know that TCI was at the forefront with chassis. So we had talked with Ed on the phone, we had placed an order for our car, and then we had a business trip that allowed us to go to California. So we actually got to go to the factory, the old factory in Norwalk, and meet Ed and some of the guys that were actually building the frame for our project car. As we went through life, things more important than the car actually, military, law enforcement, a career in the business insurance market, raising 3 children and putting them through college were more important. But the car was still there, sitting on the chassis, the body, and we were collecting parts, had a crate motor, a brand new 79 crate motor, transmission, items that we hoped one day would be a part of this car. And then in 2016, retired. We got to spend some time looking at a couple different shops, and we chose, as it ended up, 2 shops, using the term loosely, to get started on the project of building it.
And that didn't go so well.
That did not go so well. Although both shops did some pretty decent work, there were major issues in timing and communications, and so we realized in July of 2017 we needed to bring it back to Chesapeake. And when we did that, we talked to our dear friend Bobby Cullifer, who had been our friend and a club member in our club for 40-some years. And Bobby said, "Mike, I'll finish your car for you." So that's when we started in earnest. And thankfully Bobby just lived 7 minutes from our house in Chesapeake, and he began fabrication, all the powder coating and all the assembly, and we needed, frankly, some new parts, a lot of advice too, and that's what was so amazing about TCI. Even though it was a long time ago that we bought that chassis, they were willing to help us anything at all with regards to advice and replacement parts, things that needed to be updated. And so 14 months later, utilizing local talent, Bobby, the upholsterer, and the painter, we made our first rod run to Charlotte Motor Speedway last October. Now we're living the dream. Whether it's a local event, a cruise in, or something like the Nationals today in Louisville, Kentucky. The chassis, the components have performed beautifully at speed, in handling and safety. We got our Safety 23 inspection done day before yesterday. Everything went great. The fun that we're having with it, with the air conditioning running and the power windows and the automatic transmission, is indescribable. Running around the racetrack at Charlotte at speed in the high bank was something, well, my wife of 48 years was squealing like a teeny bopper. If you could imagine that. The grandkids love it, the kids love it, and Papa loves it too. The first time we drove it from the upholsterer's shop to our daughter's home, she was there with her children, several other grandchildren, and when Linda and I came down the street, they were all sitting on the curb, jumping up and down, clapping their hands. Here comes Papa's hot rod. So that was a very special day. And then of course the rides that followed, and progress since then as we've tweaked it and gotten it as close to perfect as we can do. We started, of course, with a great foundation, that TCI chassis. It's got a Super Bell dropped and narrowed front end, updated disc brakes on the front, got the Ford 9-inch rear that we got from you guys back in 1979, drum brakes on the rear. We've gone with a 350 Chevy crate motor ZZ4 and went 30 over on it because it too had sat for a number of years in the crate. So we boarded out 30 over, so it's a 355 now, 4-barrel carburetor, stainless steel exhaust system, a full Borla exhaust system, Petronix distributors, electric power windows, and all the folks, the vendors that helped us, like TCI, you can't name them all, but starting with that Walker radiator and the cooling components, fan, that's performing so beautifully as we're out here in this heat on the interstate and in the traffic. It's just amazing. And we're also blessed to be able to say we can do it in air-conditioned comfort. The Vintage Air system, perfect, works just great. It'll freeze you out, really. So that's another bonus, that we can travel now in safety and in comfort in something 90 years old. When we did the dash, we modified the dash to look like a 32 Ford, added some panels below, and we had this old gauge panel, a Stuart Warner's era 1940, that we retrieved and painted to match our car, added the VDO gauges to it, and then Bobby built a console to drop down underneath that dash that houses all of the air conditioning controls, all of the controls for the power windows. So that's another big part of the interior. All of the interior work was done by Dave Wells right there in Chesapeake. All Mercedes quality leather and carpet and overhead. The painting was done right there in Chesapeake, Harry Hennis, and the color that Linda chose, Pull Me Over Red, has gotten rave reviews. So far we've not been pulled over, other than we like your car. One of the most important parts of this project is that it served more than a purpose for us to go to car shows and events. Sure, we enjoy the trophies, we enjoy the camaraderie, but our prayer has been from the beginning that we would travel safely and that the car would start conversations so that we could share our faith, our fellowship with the friends that we meet. And we have been so blessed to see that happen. As folks have come up and said, wow, we love the fish emblem on the back of your car, or tell me, what does that mean? And so we get to share our faith every opportunity, hopefully, that we can get. We recently were at a car show event, and a young man came up and asked, what does that fish mean? What does that fish symbol mean? So we got to share that, our testimony and our faith. At the same show, a big old fella came up and gave me a fist bump, and he said, man, I love seeing that fish on the back of your car. So we're encouraging people, and they're encouraging us too, as we take our car from show to event, or just driving it in our little community of Chesapeake, Virginia.
You might want to say what the importance of the fish means.
The importance of the fish, thank you, is that it was an early symbol in the 1st century that fellow believers would identify with as they talked on the sandy, dusty streets. They would draw the symbol of the fish with their foot in the sand. And if the person they were talking with did the same, they knew they were talking to a fellow believer or seeker of the Lord. Because at that time, persecution was very rampant, and you took your life into your hands to share your faith, unlike today. Our hope is that our journey would be something that would encourage others, both in terms of starting with a good foundation, a TCI chassis to build your car on, and then to be able to see it through to completion, even though it might take time, a lot of effort, and some dollars, that you'd see that dream realized and then be able to share the experiences that we've been able to share as we now are enjoying driving our car.